The article of impeachment.
Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed, guilty. Mr. Risch. Mr. Risch, not guilty. Mr. Romney. Guilty. Mr. Romney, guilty. Ms. Rosen. Ms. Rosen, guilty. Mr. Rounds.
Mr. Booker. Mr. Bozeman. Mr. Braun. Mr. Brown. Mr. Burr.
Donald John Trump, by his counsel, is prepared to stipulate that if Representative Herrera Butler were to testify under oath as part of these proceedings, her testimony would be consistent with the statement she issued on February 12, 2021, and the former president's counsel is agreeable to the admission of that public statement into evidence at this time.
This is the statement of Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Butler, February 12, 2021. In my January 12th statement in support of the article of impeachment, I referenced a conversation House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy relayed to me that he'd had with President Trump while the January 6th attack was ongoing. Here are the details. When McCarthy finally reached the president on January 6th and asked him to publicly and forcefully call off the riot, the president initially repeated the falsehood that it was Antifa that had breached the Capitol. McCarthy refuted that and told the president that these were Trump supporters. That's when, according to McCarthy, the president said, "Well, Kevin, I guess these people are more upset about the election than you are." We are defending the Bill of Rights. We are defending the constitutional structure. We are defending the separation of powers. We're defending the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House against a president who acted no better than a marauder and a member of that mob by inciting those people to come here. And in many ways, he was worse. He named the date, he named the time, and he brought them here, and now he must pay the price. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senators, do not let House Democrats take this manacle crusade any further. The Senate does not have to go down this dark path of enmity and division. You do not have to indulge the impeachment lust, the dishonesty, and the hypocrisy. It is time to bring this unconstitutional political theater to an end. It is time to allow our nation to move forward.
January 6th was a disgrace. American citizens attacked their own government. They used terrorism to try to stop a specific piece of domestic business they did not like. President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. No question about it. The people who stormed this building believed they were acting on the wishes and instructions of their president. And having that belief was a foreseeable consequence of the growing crescendo of false statements, conspiracy theories, and reckless hyperbole, which the defeated president kept shouting into the largest megaphone on planet Earth. But after intense reflection, I believe the best constitutional reading shows that Article 2, Section 4, exhausts the set of persons who can legitimately be impeached, tried, or convicted. It's the president, it's the vice president, and civil officers. We have no power to convict and disqualify a former office holder who is now a private citizen. Put another way, in the language of today, President Trump is still liable for everything he did while he was in office as an ordinary citizen. Unless the statute of limitations is run, still liable for everything he did while he's in office. Didn't get away with anything yet.
Unjust and blatantly unconstitutional act of political vengeance.
The rush to judgment for a snap impeachment in this case was just one example of the denial of due process.
Donald Trump's defense team on Friday rebutted Democrats' allegations that he incited the January 6th U.S. Capitol riot after House impeachment managers spent 2 days making their case against the former president.
No thinking person could seriously believe that the president's January 6th speech on the ellipse was in any way an incitement to violence or insurrection. The suggestion is patently absurd on its face.
We heard a lot this week about fight like hell, but they cut off the video before they showed you the president's optimistic, patriotic words that followed immediately after.
We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Our exciting adventures and boldest endeavors have not yet begun. My fellow Americans, for our movement, for our children, and for our beloved country, and I say this despite all that's happened, the best is yet to come.
Trump's defense team noted the former president urged supporters to march peacefully to the Capitol in the same speech and compared the call for his supporters to fight to President Joe Biden's campaign slogan, "Battle for the Soul of America." They argued it was ordinary political rhetoric and played a video compilation of Democrats using the word fight in their past remarks.
And so we're going to fight, and we're going to continue to fight.
I am going to be fighting like hell.
Keep fighting, or we kept fighting, and we did. So we're going to keep fighting.
Trump's lawyers also argued that the former president was exercising his First Amendment rights.
Does Mr. Trump's speech deserve protection under the First Amendment? There is no doubt Mr. Trump engaged in constitutionally protected political speech that the House has improperly characterized as incitement of insurrection.
Van der Veen said inflammatory language from both sides of the aisle has been alarming, arguing all political speech must be protected.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
You got to be ready to throw a punch. You have to be ready to throw a punch.
Donald Trump, I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
That I thought he should have punched him in the face.
I feel like punching him.
I'd like to take him behind the gym if I were in high school. If we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
This week, Democrats laid out a case that relied heavily on video and social media. They argued that the former president spent months exciting his supporters with false claims of a rigged election, and then not only didn't show remorse for his role, but defended his remarks before the riot as totally appropriate. The defense wrapped up its presentation after using about 3 of its allotted 16 hours.
The critical issue in this case is the very narrow issue that is charged against the 45th president. And that issue is, did the 45th president engage in incitement of, they continue to say, insurrection? Clearly, there was no insurrection. This trial is about far more than President Trump. It is about silencing and banning the speech the majority does not agree with. It is about canceling 75 million Trump voters and criminalizing political viewpoints. That is what this trial is really about.